Amir Albazi, he squeaked out the decision. Now, I said it earlier, this probably isn't the performance that he wanted to show the world to say, hey, I'm ready for that title. Because he kind of comes in with this menacing approach of, I'm the next champion, kind of Chimaev-esque, right? But Kai France gave him a hell of a battle. And I did a synopsis on this fight, and I want to know if you agree with me on this, AJ. I think that, in my opinion, rounds 2 and 3, give that to Amir Albazi. Rounds 4 and 5, give that to Kai France. And it was all predicated on how round 1 was scored. Would you agree, or do you think it's a little different than that?
No, I would agree, especially because in those rounds 2 and 3, I forget if it was, I think it was 2, where Albazi had that deep rear naked choke in, man. He was controlling a lot of the positions, but I agree with you. In 4 and 5, Kai France really started to turn the tide in his favor, run away with it. We always go back, we wish the last rounds counted a little bit more because the end of the fight, all that stuff always is said. But at the same time, the judges, it's all on the judges and which judges are there that night, which creates a little bit of uncontinuity, a little bit of contention. Yeah, I agree with you, Derek.
Yeah, so that's what's tough about it is because I think it's a little bit deeper than that too, right? Because round 1, if it was a coin toss, like I said, out of 10 fights, they might have scored it 10 different ways, whatever the case may be. But I think the other thing that factored into this was the approach that I was kind of talking about on the pre-show, where I said Amir Albazi, what's the most dangerous factor about him is he has an ability to get it to the mat whenever he wants. I didn't say that he will get it to the mat, but that ability freezes up your striking, and it did to Kai France the thing that showed. You put him on the back foot, basically. You relegated him to the back foot the entire fight. He had his moments where he would blitz in front, but then he'd go right back to the back foot. Visually, AJ, I think we have to start taking into consideration that kind of wins you fights. You're dictating where the fight is taking place. You're pushing him up against the cage. You might not be winning, but you're pushing him up against the cage. You're saying, hey, this is where I want the fight to take place. And Kai France, for a lot of the fight, man, he didn't have a lot of answers for that. So if you had to categorize that in a scoring criteria, is that cage control? Is that aggressiveness? What do you call that?
I would say control. It's dictating where the fight takes place, because you're right, Derek. Especially, I don't think it helps that right before the fight, all the UFC is doing is promoting that big right hand of Cara France. It shows every highlight. This guy's pushing forward. This guy's controlling the pace. And when Albazi takes that from him, it does snag a little bit of that steam. And cage control, octagon control, whatever you want to call it. I do think it's starting to come into at least a little more consistently judged in the eyes. There's some fights we'll go back where, TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen. I believe that was the one where, Corey Sandhagen the whole time doing damage, but TJ Dillashaw has the control. Now we see other fights where it's the opposite. I think it's starting to matter a little bit more, especially when your style of fighting is always on the front foot. At least the judges are seeing now he's on the back. Now it's something different. I like that.
And that's the thing, man, is that it's like Kai France, it felt to a degree like he was landing more damage. You can't argue it any other way. He landed more significant strikes by a heavy amount. It was 99-43 in favor of Kai France. He outthrew Albazi by 200 strikes. But yet he still loses, right? So that's when we say, all right, it's not just about the pitter-patter shots. You have to really cut, hurt damage. He hit some good elbows, as you alluded to, and all that. But Albazi, once again, optically, I felt like Albazi's moments were far and few in between in some rounds. But when you rack up points early on, it's easy to be able to falter off towards the end and still get the win. So at the end of the day, robbery report, I don't think so. Man. I think Kai France needs to find a way to not let these grapplers or these people with the heavy pressure keep him on the back foot for all 5 rounds, right? Because if Albazi was relegated to the back foot for a couple of different rounds, don't you think that the everything would have flipped on its head?
Oh, 100%. Even the moments where Cara France was able to, get Albazi off his back, get him on the ground, control, like we were saying, throwing those big elbows, cutting him up. I think it was round 3, and still, I would have still given that round to Albazi because it was just a random last 30 seconds where he was able to not actually have the control. But for the whole, 4.5 minutes, he was still working his game plan.
And I'm glad that they still give Albazi the round, because I remember in that round when they went to the corners, even the corner said, bro, you won that. That was the last 30 seconds, bro. That doesn't mean nothing. You won that round. Because that's the thing. It's a 5-minute round. What happens in the last 30 seconds is not going to dictate or swing the fight if it's not impactful enough. Either way, I want to ask you now implications, right? Amir Albazi looked fantastic on the feet. He kind of used this as I could have took this to the mat whenever I wanted. I wanted to have fun. I was showing that I could stand with anybody on the feet. And if you could stand with Kai France on the feet for 15 or for 25 minutes, you are proving a pretty good point. Was this a display that convinces you that if he fought a Brandon Royval or a Brandon Moreno right now, that he'd be able to come up victorious?
It's interesting because with Moreno, you do also have to worry about that wrestling and that pressure. But if he's able to do that, even to a Brandon Royval, make them worried about his takedowns and put them on the back foot and control them, yeah, I think that's more of a contender we're thinking about now. But can he do that against somebody who's more of a wrestler than Kai Kara France started off? That's kind of what makes this interesting. So I'd like to see it, especially against, like you said, Derek, a Brandon Royval, somebody who's not exactly at the exact top, at the pinnacle, like a Moreno, but close and somewhat similar styles, as well as very dangerous on the feet, arguably a little more creative than just the big right hand of Kai Kara France. Adds a little bit of mix there. I'd like to see it.
Well, what I think that the unfortunate part about the outcome of this fight is that the person who got hurt most wasn't Kai Kara France, it wasn't Albazi. I think it was Brandon Royval. Because Royval was that consensus, I'm next for the title. And now Amir Albazi kind of muddies that picture because it's a three-man show now. It's Pantoja, it's Royval, and it's Albazi. And I think that they should do a little gauntlet between them to determine who should be that next person, even though that's kind of unfair given, what's taken place over the last year or whatnot. But, I mean, MMA is not fair, bro. So with that being said, I think the flyweight division right now has more life to it than it has had in recent time, especially now that Moreno has proven to be the new solidified champion. So, prediction, does Amir Albazi claim gold in the next 2 years?
2 years. I like that, Derek. That gives a little more swing. I was hoping you're going to say 1 year because that's a solid no for me. But 2 years, he gives a little bit of that. I think anything can shake out in that top three, especially when it's only three guys in the flyweight division who are looking to fight pretty consistently.
Yeah.
I'd give it a 70% chance. Yeah, we see gold around Albazi's waist. What about you?
If it's 2 years, I think with a 90% confidence rate that Amir Albazi is the new champion. I just think that he has a style that's going to be very, very difficult to beat. And we just saw that the cardio can hold up over 25 minutes with the heavy grappling approach too. Even though he was 1 for 9 on takedowns, he did not look tired at the end. He slowed down a little bit. But, listen, man, watch out for this guy. Fantastic